Welcome back to Homeopathy at Home with Melissa. Hey, Melissa.
Hey.
Today we're going to talk about delayed development, and it's heavy on remedies. So I would suggest, if you're able to right now, pause and get something to take notes, however you take notes. If you're in the car or listening, doing something else, this is always transcribed later. So I just wanted to give you that heads up, though, because it's a lot more remedies than normal, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So, and just because there's lots of remedies doesn't mean that we're going to be here for 50 minutes. This is going to be like remedy. Here's the differential. Here's when you choose this one. So delayed development. What does that even mean? That's when these babies or these kids are late walking, late talking, even learning disabilities can possibly be due to delayed development. ADHD, right, could be delayed, part of a delayed development picture. And just come back, in 2 weeks and we're going to do ADHD next. So we're going to really just focus on ADHD because it's such a big problem, these days. And we know that there are lots of parents out there struggling with ADHD. So we're going to dig into that one a lot in the next episode. But for today, let's just go with delayed walking and delayed talking. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So learning to talk, being delayed. And so what that being delayed and learning to talk means after 2 years old, that after 2, that they're still not talking, or that they're, just saying a few words, because really in the first, year of life, there should be words coming, right? So, before 1, there should be mama, dada. Usually dada's first. They like that.
Yeah, all the time.
That's easier than and so I learned a lot, and that was what I thought I was going to do. I went to school for early childhood development, and because that's what I thought that I wanted to do. So I learned a lot, and I retained a lot of that. And one quick little just story about Chandler, who, most of you know if you've been listening to this podcast for long, is that he had lots of ear infections, lots. He's the one that got me into homeopathy, because he had all these ear infections constant over and over and over again. And with every ear infection, there was, there's pain, and they might be stopped up or stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
Having all those ear infections delayed his talking. And, and I was really concerned about when he was a little bit, behind the other children that I knew, because I worked in a childcare facility, and I went to, the doctor actually, it was the pediatrician that said he's delayed, in talking, and it's because of these ear infections that he had. So think about that. If you have a toddler who has had lots of ear infections or lots of illness, just because the body's having to work so hard to heal.
Even if it's not related directly to hearing. I think I was just thinking while you were talking about, as we've introduced so many more vaccines, even in the first couple of years of life, I think their little bodies are spending so much energy on just readjusting and rebuilding back their health. So it can't spend the energy on learning to talk and learning to walk and developing the same. And that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So maybe something to consider if you're listening, and we never want to make anybody feel bad if you're making those choices to vaccinate however you are or not, but just consider how that plays into your child's development. And don't also take all of these milestones as gospel, and use your judgment as mom and your intuition that my third, I'm starting to think, I'm watching him because he's so behind, compared to my other 2. But I know he's developing. He's just a little potato who doesn't care to say anything. you know, that I think it's in there.
So I love this conversation because we have to think of these things. Okay. So I took my youngest son. So I have the older son, the middle daughter, and then the younger son. When I took the older son to the pediatrician when he was about 2, I was concerned because I knew where he should be developmentally and speaking.
Yeah.
And me in the pediatrician's office, there was me and Grace and Cash sitting in the office. And I'm telling the pediatrician my concern that now this one has never had a vaccine and or even medication, over the counter medication, prescription medication. And I'm telling him my concern, and he listens. He was such a good listener. He just sat there and listened for a while. And then he said, I think it's because she doesn't let him talk. I was like, because every time he asked Cash a question, Grace would answer. And he was like, I want to talk to Cash. So, and then I didn't even realize that. He didn't need to talk. She was talking for him.
He's like, this is nice. I don't need to participate because she's doing it for me.
So it's, all these
That's
things.
a really good point though.
So if it's, if you can come up, if you know the etiology, like it's just due to constant illness, then we need to address the constant illness. If it's just due to the sister's talking for him, then let's address the behavior, right? And say, okay, sister, we have to let the baby talk, So we don't want to jump to remedies as a first thing if, unless there is a neurological, a physical, a mental, condition. And then, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And the first remedy is NATMUR, Natrum muraticum. And this child is shut down emotionally. So, that's something you would definitely see. It would be, just probably the emotionless, no joy, maybe even no anger or sadness, or just, just kind of maybe even apathetic, because they hold everything in. NATMUR holds everything in. So they have those big feelings, but they're not letting them come out. And then if that affects their talking,
Mm-hmm.
you might consider NATMUR. And NATMUR is a cell salt, so you could use it in a 6X. And that would be a great place to start, just a couple times a day, if you feel like that's the etiology of this delayed talking. Another one is Beretta carb. Beretta, and some people say Burrita. And Burrita or Beretta carb is the mentally defective. So this is a learning disability. This is a big one for Down syndrome, and really this is a big developmental delay. So there's lots of delays. This is very prominent. This is not just the little boy who doesn't talk because his sister's talking for him. This isn't just the boy who or the kid who has had lots of illness and he just hasn't gotten there yet, but he's getting there. This is big. This is a bigger learning disability.
Okay.
Posticum. Oh, did you have a question?
I did. I was thinking just more about that one. If that one has such a bigger picture and could legitimately be connected to a disability or a chromosomal defect or something like that, how would you gauge improvement? Because like with a child with Down syndrome, it's very common, they speak later.
Yeah.
And so giving them this obviously isn't going to take away Down syndrome. So would we just expect to see maybe more talking? Or I know it's probably hard for you to answer too, because that can look different.
It can look different for everybody, but you're looking at emotions. So, homeopathy works on the mental and the physical, and it's usually the mental first. So you might see a brighter, more energy.
Okay.
You might see a child that doesn't get sick as often, because Down syndrome children or people I think they get sick more often. But you should also then start to see more words, more understanding of what's happening around them, right? Because there's different levels of these learning disabilities and these mental
Right.
problems. So, some people with Down syndrome can work,
Mhm.
and can live on their own, and some can't. And so
So
you're
maybe
gonna,
it's even more of a mental clarity or understanding and something you'll have to observe
right.
depending on your child. Okay.
Hmm. So the next remedy is cost to come, and that is great when there's delayed speech that's accompanied by stammering or stuttering. So this is a problem in the vocal cords. That's why the
Okay.
speech is delayed. The etiology is the vocal cords. And this child might have had or have lots of sore throats.
Mm.
So that could be the etiology. So the problem is here.
I think that's the remedy too for that machine gun cough or one of the coughs that's chopped up like that, which is
Right.
interesting that it's linked to stuttering and stuff.
Mhm. Yep. That's a good observation, Bree. I don't have that memorized.
I don't, and that came to my brain. It will probably never come back when I need it for a cough or something. It just,
The
and
Lord
I could be
brought it
wrong.
to you.
So yeah.
So the next one is Agaricus muscarius. It's the poison mushroom. It's that toad that every time you see, okay, look, if you type on your iPhone mushroom, that white stem, red cap mushroom with the white dots, that's Agaricus muscarius.
That's that.
Yeah.
Well, this is the only use I've ever seen for that. So this is
Right.
great.
So this is neurological problems with slow speech development. And so neurological issues, then there may be twitching, spasms, what's the other word for twitching? The tics maybe, possibly,
Okay.
but it's a twit, lots of neurological
Mm-hmm.
things that are causing the speech to be slowly developed. All right, and then Sanicula agua. Sanicula agua is a combo. It's a combination remedy.
Okay.
I honestly, so this is my notes from Dr. Murphy, right? Because this is where I went to school. And I honestly don't know. Bree, do you have your Materia Medica
I
next
do.
to you? See if that's in there.
Okay.
I wonder. Because I
It's
know
actually under my
Sanicula.
computer. All right. I've never heard of this one either. So I learn new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But while you're looking for that, this has silica, calcarb, natmur, sulfur in it, and it's potentized mineral water. And so it's not that you would go to Ainsworth and say, combine for me silica, calcarb, natmur, and sulfur. It's like Dr. Murphy described calcarb as having, this and this, the oyster shell and the I don't remember. There's other times where he describes the combo remedies like this. So
Okay.
highly.
It is in here.
And what does it say that it is? Like it's whole form.
It's Mineral Springs.
Okay. Okay.
So that's interesting.
So it is actually, it's potentized mineral water.
Mhm.
Within that mineral water, you've got the
Are
silica,
those things?
you've
Yeah.
got the calcarb, you've got the natmur, and you've got the sulfur, right? So again, it's not that you go to the pharmacy and say, combine these things for me to make this remedy to do this thing. It's because they are present in the mineral water.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're gonna use Sanicula agua when there's obstinance in the child. So it's delayed speech development, and a concomitant, a symptom that comes along with that is obstinance and skin problems. So we're looking at the whole picture. You might think, well, skin problems has nothing to do with delayed speech. But in this remedy, that's part of the differential. That's part of what we're looking for that goes along with this delayed speech.
I wonder if obstinance is just that strong will, like I'm not gonna do it because you want me to do it. And a lot of these seem to have, or I mean, there's not a ton of them, but they all have a mental picture,
Mhm,
or a majority of them do.
mhm.
Like there's even just a mental temperament
Yeah.
that goes along with it.
Yep. So those are the main delayed speech remedies. And remember, that's after 2 years old. So delayed walking. All three of my children were extremely careful. All through their childhood, they rarely got hurt.
Are they
Ever.
still?
They still are just there, and it's not like it's not like an anxious careful.
Right.
They don't get hurt. And
Well, it must be nice.
right.
Because the
And
rest
so
of us are like, well, my kids don't
all
think.
three of them walked. They didn't just, you see these babies that just take off and they fall, and they take off and they fall, and they take off and they fall, and they bump everything and they fall all the time. My kids just never, they didn't walk until they were absolutely ready to actually walk.
Mhm.
Isn't that funny?
That is really, I know a mom right now with her child is like that. And I think one of mine was, and then my second was like, I'm gonna keep doing this till I make it. I remember him learning to go downstairs. Sorry, side note.
Yeah.
But he was running and kicking a soccer ball at 10 months old. So it was sometime between here and maybe like a little over a year. He would fall downstairs, obviously. So he would look at the edge, and he got a running start, and just like thought, if I'm gonna run, I'm just gonna keep running as I fall and make it. And that was his solution. Instead of being careful,
That's
he
funny.
decided to just run. And it sort of worked for him, which is not great.
Yeah. So as I reached over to grab my meat stock to drink it, and I saw in the video, my mug, it just reminded me, I wanted to say, this is the mug that they gave me when I left the hospital. My precious friends at the hospital gave me this
Oh,
precious mug, and I drink out of it. So if any of you are watching or listening, I drink out of this all the time, and I'm so thankful for it.
you
And
do. I've seen that mug before, so I can attest to that.
reminds me of my beautiful hospital friends. Okay, so delayed walking. Agaricus, again, can be used for delayed walking. And remember, that's due to the neurological problems with spasms, and twitching. So when you've got the, neurological, again, same thing with the talking. So if there's delayed walking, then you would think of Agaricus muscaricus again. You'll also think of Beretta carb again for delayed walking because and this is due to endocrine problems, dwarfism, and pituitary hypofunctioning. Okay. So again, Beretta carb is not going to fix the dwarfism, but it addresses that as part of the picture. And you will start to look for maybe more strength, or, maybe the ability to, I don't know, I really don't know what that would look like, but there should be some types of improvements, right? As we look at those things. But if you problems or pituitary hypofunctioning, then you might think of Beretta carb. And then calc carb. Our little calc carb babies are flabby, they're soft and squishy, they're fat.
I like those babies.
So this is the lack of structure. This is flabby muscles, lack of structure, weakness in the limbs, but just because they're so like fat and squishy. And I mean, Grace was so fat. We called her the Michelin Man. She looked like she had rubber bands. It was nuts. And she was so fat that she couldn't crawl.
Oh, she couldn't crawl. She was too chunky.
So
you wouldn't know it now. She's like super thin now.
Yes. Beautiful, thin.
Yeah, she is.
So yes. Those are and sweaty. Usually the calc carb babies are sweaty. They have the sweaty heads. They might even smell sour.
Mhm.
All right, and then calc phos, this has everything to do with the bones. So bone weakness, curvatures of the bones, easily breaking bones. They might lean forward while they're walking, and they might have flat feet, and their ligaments might be lax. So you're going to look at calc phos. Calc phos is a cell salt. So you would be looking at a 3x or 6x, 2 or 3 times a day, long term, to try
Mhm.
to strengthen those bones and get those things to line up. Causticum, again, the nerves are affected. So there might be paralysis, weakness, or weakness, weak legs. So that's why they're not walking well. Nightmare, they don't want to walk.
I always laugh when I think of like Nightmare people. Not always, because sometimes it's like sad, and you always say Nightmare is your remedy, and or
Yes.
right, yeah, like for your headaches. So like holding in emotions is sad, but thinking of the kid who's like, I'm just not gonna do that.
Just don't want to.
I just don't feel like it. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might think, how would you know? If a toddler's not going to say, I just don't want to. A 1-year-old is not going to say, I just don't feel like it. So, but listen, you as the mom, you have these
You can
instincts.
tell.
You
Yeah.
know if there's something physically or mentally wrong, or if they just don't want to. And we have to trust moms when they say, he just doesn't want to walk. He just doesn't want to. We
Hmm.
really need to trust that they know what they're talking about. And so then we try
That's
not
good.
mirror. Mm-hmm.
It's cool that there's several of these that overlap. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
recognize that if you're listening, where maybe your child's struggling with both, you might be
Mm-hmm.
able to find one remedy that matches instead of trying to find one for talking and one for walking.
So
They
good.
may overlap where you can use it for both
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, that's good. The last one for delayed walking is silica, and silica is weak. Silica is your thin, weak, pale. They just have a general weakness about them. They're frail, puny, premature. They might have been a premature baby, underweight. So they're thin. This is just the most puny, the most frail, real thin, with a big head and a big belly. And
Hmm.
so that is just the picture of silica. And, so if they're not walking because they are, physically weak and thin and frail, then you'll think of silica. Silica is also a cell salt. So and silica is very often used in a 12X. So you might think of a 12X. There's nothing wrong with using a set, but I usually start with a 12X or maybe even a 6C. And let me just clarify that 12X does not equal 6C. There's way big difference there. It's just kind of the range that I like to start in. And again though, even with cell salts, you can use 30s and 200s. You can use any potency that you want to, but cell salts I like to start low in the decimal scale.
Okay. I have a question too. I know that was our last remedy we were going to cover, and I just have maybe a ending question. If any of these are due to vaccine injury, so I
Mm,
have seen almost like maybe it's a delay because of them, but I have seen kids respond with that muscle, like the twitching and the spasming following a vaccine, and where it's not necessarily delayed, like they were walking and now it's kind of gone a little bit backwards.
yeah.
Would you use these same remedies, or would you suggest doing
Mm-mm.
a vaccine, like a vaccinosis type protocol, or both, or what do you think?
Yeah. Silica is big for vaccinosis. So silica is just already a big one for that. Thuya is number one for vaccinosis. So if you have any ailment that arises because of a vaccine, Thuya is
Okay.
usually the one that you would go to first, and silica. Those are the
And
two.
that's like chronic, you would treat that chronically then if it's a vaccine injury?
Yeah. Yeah, I do
Okay,
believe I would, but yeah, and especially if they go backwards like that, then you might even, um, you might look at some of the autistic or autism, remedies. Let's see, wow. Um, silicon thuya. Yeah, silicon thuya that
okay.
show up a lot in that. And then
And
there's some
then maybe later introduce some of, like, if you kind of address that initial vaccinosis and see improvement, then maybe move on to one of these in a few months or something?
if it still fits, yeah, you can
Yeah,
move
if
it to
there's
your
still
medica.
lingering stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in 2 weeks, we're going to talk specifically about ADHD. And let me just touch on really quick why we're going to do that, why that's going to follow this. So, development problems in children can include excessive behaviors and deficits. And so, all those behaviors contribute to development delay in one way or another. So, when you look at ADHD, that is part of that picture. So we want to dig deep in, or, we want to talk some about ADHD and ADHD remedies next time. So in 2 weeks. So come back for that. We're really going to, so next time is not going to be heavy on remedies. It's going to be heavy on what we're looking at, what it looks like.
Mhm.
And they are going to be remedies. So, if you're thinking, I already know what ADHD looks like, still come back because we've got, yeah, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we got several remedies we're going to talk about. That one might be a little bit longer.
Yeah, so we'll make this one short. Where are we at?
Yep.
Bye, everybody. I'm kidding.
All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.